On January 26, 1945, at 2:20 p.m., something impossible unfolded on the frozen fields outside Holtzwihr, France. Through the chaos and smoke of battle, a single American soldier stood atop a burning tank destroyer, systematically destroying an entire German company's advance. The elite mountain troops, veterans transferred from Norway specifically for this winter offensive, were being stopped cold by what appeared to be a boy who couldn't weigh more than 50 kilograms. Behind German lines, 6 Panzer tanks sat immobilized. Their commanders were too shocked to advance without infantry support that was being methodically cut down by one American. The mathematics were stark. 40 exhausted Americans against 250 elite German mountain infantry and 6 tanks. By every principle of military science, the American position should have been overrun in minutes. Instead, for one impossible hour, Second Lieutenant Audie Murphy would rewrite the rules of warfare. The path to that burning tank destroyer began in the cotton fields of Hunt County, Texas. Audie Murphy was born on June 20th, 1925, to impoverished sharecroppers. The 6th of 12 children, Murphy's childhood was defined by crushing poverty and responsibility. His father abandoned the family when Audie was 12. His mother died in 1941, leaving the 16-year-old as primary provider for his younger siblings. "If I don't hit what I shoot at, my family doesn't eat tonight," young Murphy had told his neighbor. The boy could drop a running rabbit at 50 yards with a .22 rifle. Each bullet cost money the family didn't have. Each miss meant empty stomachs. Under such pressure, Murphy developed a shooter's eye that would later terrify German soldiers across 3 countries. When Pearl Harbor was attacked, Murphy saw his chance. The military offered steady pay, 3 meals a day, and the ability to send money home. But even joining proved difficult for the undersized teenager. Standing 5 feet and weighing 110 pounds, Murphy was rejected by the Marines and Navy as too small. The Army paratroopers wouldn't take him either. Finally, the regular Army infantry accepted him on June 30th, 1942. After his sister provided a falsified affidavit, a fellow recruit from Camp Walters, Texas, later recalled, "We all thought he was a mascot at first. This kid, who looked about 14 and weighed nothing. The drill sergeants rode him mercilessly, called him baby. But there was something about his eyes. When he was on the rifle range, those baby blue eyes went cold as winter. He never missed, not once." Murphy's transformation from Texas farm boy to lethal soldier began during the invasion of Sicily in July 1943. Company B, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, landed at Licata as part of Patton's 7th Army. In the mountains of Sicily, Murphy discovered something that would haunt him forever. He was exceptionally good at killing. His rural upbringing had taught him to move silently, to use terrain for concealment, to shoot quickly and accurately. Near Palermo, when his unit was pinned down by machine gun fire, Private Murphy worked his way around the enemy position, eliminated the crew with grenades, and turned their weapon on retreating forces. Captain Paul Harris recommended him for the Bronze Star, writing, "This soldier displays a natural aptitude for combat that is extraordinary in one so young and inexperienced." By the invasion of southern France in August 1944, Murphy had survived Sicily, Salerno, Anzio, and Rome. He had been wounded twice, decorated multiple times, and developed a reputation among both Americans and Germans as someone to be feared. His leadership earned him a battlefield commission to 2nd Lieutenant on October 14, 1944. By January 1945, as Company B approached the Colmar Pocket, Murphy was no longer the baby-faced recruit who had joined in 1942. Combat had aged him beyond his 19 years. He had seen most of his original companions killed or wounded. he had personally killed over 100 enemy soldiers. The Colmar Pocket represented everything horrible about winter warfare. An 850-square-mile German bridgehead west of the Rhine. It was the last piece of French soil the Wehrmacht controlled. For Company B, the situation was desperate. In 5 days of fighting leading up to January 26th, they had lost 102 men, killed or wounded, and all officers except Murphy, killed or evacuated. From a full-strength company of 187 men, they were down to 40 effectives. Murphy himself was fighting with a leg wound from shrapnel received 2 days earlier, though he had told no one about it. Private Anthony Abramsky described their condition. "We were finished, done. Most of us hadn't slept in 3 days. We'd been living on cold rations when we could eat at all. Half the guys had frostbite. Our machine guns were freezing up. We tried all night to dig foxholes, but the ground was like iron. When dawn came, and we saw our positions strung out along the edge of the woods with open fields in front of us, we knew we were sitting ducks." January 26th dawned gray and bitter cold. The temperature hovered around freezing with wind that cut through the heaviest overcoats. Snow lay 3 feet deep in places, though constant artillery fire had churned much of the battlefield into a moonscape of frozen mud and ice. Company B held positions along the edge of the Batavier forest, looking out across nearly a mile of open ground toward the German-held village of Holzwihr. The German attack was preceded by an artillery barrage that began at 1 p.m. Tree bursts, shells exploding in the treetops, showered Company B's positions with deadly fragments. The barrage lasted 30 minutes, though to the men enduring it, it seemed like hours. At 2 p.m., the German attack materialized. Private First Class Donald Ekman was the first to spot them. You could see the pennants on the antenna of the German tanks, 6 of them, spread out in attack formation. And behind them, Jesus Christ, there must have been 250 infantry, all in white snow camouflage, moving across that field like ghosts. Murphy's first action was to call for artillery support. But artillery alone wouldn't stop this attack. The Germans were too spread out, too numerous, and moving too fast. At 600 yards, the M10 tank destroyers opened fire. Their first shots missed. Return fire from the German tanks was immediate and devastating. An 88mm shell struck the rear M10 squarely in the turret. The tank destroyer burst into flames, its crew scrambling out and running for the woods. At approximately 2:20 p.m., with both tank destroyers out of action and German infantry closing to within 200 yards, Murphy made the decision that would earn him the Medal of Honor. He ordered his remaining men to fall back to prepared positions in the woods, but he himself didn't retreat. Instead, Murphy ran through the artillery fire to the burning M10 tank destroyer. The vehicle was fully engulfed in flames at the rear where the 88mm shell had ignited its fuel and ammunition. Black smoke poured from the hull. The heat was intense enough to be felt from 30 feet away. At any moment, the remaining ammunition could explode, turning the vehicle into a massive bomb. Murphy climbed onto the tank destroyer and manned its 50 caliber M2 Browning machine gun. From this elevated position, he had a clear field of fire across the approaching German formations. But he was also completely exposed, a single figure silhouetted against the sky, with no cover except the smoke from the burning vehicle beneath him. Private First Class Anthony Abramsky watched from the wood line. "I saw Lieutenant Murphy climb on top of the burning tank destroyer, while bursts of machine gun fire were heard. Pistol fire from the advancing infantry battered against the hull and tread. It was the greatest display of guts and courage I have ever seen. For the next hour, Murphy operated the heavy machine gun with extraordinary effectiveness. Throughout the engagement, he maintained telephone contact with supporting artillery, calling in fire missions dangerously close to his own position. The combination of his machine gun fire and the artillery he directed created a wall of steel that the German infantry could not penetrate. The M2 Browning was a devastating weapon. It fired 550 rounds per minute with an effective range of 2,000 meters. Its .50-inch bullets could penetrate light armor and tear human bodies apart. In Murphy's hands, it became an instrument of precise destruction. German infantrymen got within 10 yards of Murphy, who killed them with deadly accuracy. At approximately 3:10 p.m., after 40 minutes of continuous firing, Murphy's ammunition began to run low. The barrel glowed red from heat. German infantry had worked to within 10 yards of his position. Private Charles Owen recalled, "We could hear the lieutenant's 50 starting to slow down. He was running out of ammo. Some of the Germans must have figured it out too, because they started rushing forward." Murphy grabbed his carbine and started picking them off with that. At approximately 3:10 p.m., with his ammunition nearly exhausted and German infantry closing to within 10 yards, Murphy made the most desperate call of the battle. He ordered the artillery to fire directly on his position. The forward observer, Lieutenant Walter Weiss-Fenning, initially refused, knowing it would mean certain death for Murphy. But Murphy insisted, "I'm giving you a direct order. Fire on my position now." The first shells landed within 50 yards of the burning tank destroyer. The explosions threw frozen earth and shrapnel in all directions. German infantry caught in the open were torn apart. Shrapnel tore through Murphy's leg, his second wound of the day, but he continued firing the few rounds he had left. The combination of Murphy's direct fire and the artillery barrage broke the German attack. The surviving infantry, perhaps 100 men, began falling back toward Holzwihr. The tanks, without infantry support and facing increasingly accurate artillery fire, reversed course and withdrew. At approximately 3:20 p.m., after an hour of continuous combat, Murphy climbed down from the burning M10. His uniform was scorched from the heat. Blood ran down his leg from shrapnel wounds. Behind him, the tank destroyer continued to burn, finally exploding 10 minutes after he abandoned it. The battlefield before him was devastating. German bodies lay scattered across the snow-covered fields. Military historians estimate 50 dead, with many more wounded. The surviving Germans were in full retreat. Murphy walked back to the woodline where his men waited. According to Private Abramsky, he was calm, scary calm. He asked if they had any casualties from the artillery, made sure everyone was okay, then sat down and lit a cigarette like nothing had happened. Murphy's stand at Holzwihr enabled the 3rd Infantry Division to maintain its hold on the critical Batavier Forest, which dominated the approaches to Holzwihr village. Within weeks, the entire German bridgehead west of the Rhine had been eliminated. The engagement demonstrated that even elite German formations could no longer overcome determined American resistance, regardless of numerical superiority. The official Medal of Honor citation presented by Lieutenant General Alexander Patch on June 2, 1945, provides the military's formal recognition of Murphy's achievement. The citation's language, typically understated in military documents, struggles to capture the extraordinary nature of the action. He was alone and exposed to German fire from 3 sides, but his deadly fire killed dozens of Germans and caused their infantry attack to waver. For an hour, the Germans tried every available weapon to eliminate 2nd Lieutenant Murphy, but he continued to hold his position. Murphy received every combat decoration for valor that the United States Army could award. His 33 decorations included the Medal of Honor, Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, Legion of Merit, 2 Bronze Stars, and 3 Purple Hearts, plus 5 decorations from France and Belgium. Yet Murphy's true legacy lies beyond medals. His advocacy for veterans' mental health was decades ahead of its time. Murphy suffered from what was then called battle fatigue, now recognized as PTSD. He suffered from chronic insomnia, recurring nightmares, and hypervigilance that led him to sleep with a loaded pistol under his pillow. Eventually, he moved to sleeping in his garage with the lights on, unable to tolerate darkness that reminded him of night combat. Murphy's willingness to speak publicly about these struggles led to legislation creating the Audie Murphy Memorial VA Hospital in San Antonio in 1973, 2 years after his death in a plane crash at age 45. Despite his own struggles, Murphy became an early advocate for veterans suffering from combat-related psychological injuries. His autobiography has helped thousands of veterans realize they're not alone in their struggles. Today, the field outside Holtzvir is peaceful farmland again. The scars of battle have healed. The shell craters are filled in. The blood has been washed away by decades of rain. But on January 26th each year, a small ceremony is held at the memorial, marking Murphy's stand. French citizens, American veterans, and occasionally elderly Germans gather to remember the day one American soldier proved that courage has no limits. Murphy's story reminds us that heroism isn't about being fearless. Murphy was terrified by his own admission. It's about acting despite that fear when others depend on you. It's about making a stand when retreat would be easier. The boy who hunted rabbits to feed his family became the man who stopped an army to save his friends. In war, as in life, that transformation from the ordinary to the extraordinary remains the most shocking truth of all.